Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, DwyerVIP.com for premium picks. Look us up in the sports section on Roku. We're there. Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me start by saying, for those of you who want to know about Floyd Mayweather's footwork, about just how brilliant Mayweather is, about where Mayweather tries to position himself, I would encourage you to look at Mayweather against Renato Hernandez, right? This is the fight in which Mayweather picks up his first title professionally, right? Renato Hernandez, who's no longer with us. Well, what I want you to do is to listen to Boxing Hall of Famer George Foreman on the telecast. I thought Foreman was one of the best boxing analysts ever. His comments during that Mayweather fight on Mayweather's feet, and it goes on for a while, are really a tutorial on what a masterful boxer is doing in the ring to position himself outside of harm's way while making sure that he can land the punches he wants to when he needs to. Right? So I would encourage you to listen to Foreman in that Renato Hernandez versus Floyd Mayweather tape. What I also want you to do is I want you to look at Marcus Maidana against Adrian Broner. I believe it's the first knockdown in the fight. Right? What I want you to do, I believe it's early. I believe it's like the second round. What I want you to do is to look at the condition Broner is in when he gets up. Right? Broner can't even stand straight. He's been buzzed to the point where his body is not cooperating. Mentally, he's there, but when he gets up, his body does a little dance that he didn't intend for it to do. He actually looks at his corner and he nods that he's okay. Now, my point to you is that took place early in that fight. Right? Early. What I want you to do is to ask yourself how Broner was able to survive the rest of that fight. Now, let me say this because it applies to Marcus Maidana against Floyd Mayweather. Let's get back to George Foreman. Foreman claims that when he fought then heavyweight champion Michael Moore, he knew he could hit Moore with the right hand. He knew he could hurt Moore with the right hand. Early in the fight, he saw an opportunity to do just that. According to Foreman, he pulled the punch. Now, the reason why he pulled the punch was that he didn't want Moore getting hit while Moore was fresh. It's early in the fight. He's fully lucid. He didn't want Moore getting hit and then staying away from that right hand the rest of the fight. So Foreman, a thinking man's fighter after he returned to the sport, deliberately kept that right hand on ice. When he threw it, he did not throw it at full strength. Right? Because he wanted to convince Moore that he could take the right hand. Later in the fight, when Moore was tired and Foreman believed Moore couldn't recover from the right hand, that's when he dropped it. Now let's talk about Marcus Maidana against Floyd. In fact, let me talk about another first round. It's one of my favorite first rounds ever. Go back, 1960s, the first Ali Liston fight. Understand, Liston's the champ. Ali's a big underdog. Right? What you're going to see in that first round is Ali hardly throws any punches. He's coming in, he's feinting. He feints with his feet. There's a lot of movement, but he doesn't throw a lot of punches. What Ali is doing in that round, in my opinion, is he's studying angles. In other words, he's dancing around Liston and he'll fake a punch to see which way Liston moves, to see how Liston would defend the punch, to figure out the angles in which he can throw the punch. Right back then, the fights were 15 rounds. Now the fight is 12 rounds. But the point is, you have time, right, to figure out the angles. You know what you do best. No doubt Marcus Maidana, like Foreman, feels that he has the equivalent of a Foreman right hand that he feels can hurt Floyd Mayweather. Now let's talk about how Marcus Maidana could bother Mayweather, right, against the prism of what I've just discussed. In my opinion, Maidana made a mistake against Adrian Broner. Right? Things worked out. But the point is this. He shouldn't have thrown the kitchen sink at Broner early in the fight when Broner could recover. Right? Had he hit Broner with those shots halfway through the fight, right? I believe it's a left hand that drops Broner, right? Had he waited a little bit until Broner got a little bit tired, had he banked some body shots, slowing down Adrian Broner before he then went for the KO, he might have stopped Broner. The problem is, by hurting Broner with your Sunday punches early in the fight, Broner was able to make adjustments. Broner was able to survive. It got to the point where in the later rounds there seems to be something weird going on in Maidana's corner. Many pundits, myself included, felt that Maidana was fading in that fight late. Right? The pacing was off. Now, against Floyd Mayweather, I don't care what's said. Every fighter claims that they think so little of their opponent that they don't even look at films before a fight. We know in Mayweather's case that's not true, because there are interviews in which Mayweather discusses in depth the styles of his opponents. Right? I believe Mayweather is the consummate student of the game. If you're going to train as hard as Mayweather does, wouldn't that training also include watching tapes of your opponent? Right? Now, I believe Mayweather, who's managed by the same guy who manages Adrian Broner, I believe Mayweather has studied that Broner tape. I believe Mayweather has studied Marcus Maidana. He knows what Maidana does well. He sees the looping punches. He knows that Maidana is going to be on his front foot coming forward. He knows the punches are going to be wide. He knows Maidana is going to try to get him over to the side of the ring, like he did Adrian Broner. He knows Maidana is going to try to muscle him. So, if you're Marcus Maidana and you know you're fighting a defensive wizard, you know you're fighting a guy who makes adjustments, a guy who's going to be prepared for your hard, wide shots, for your front foot aggression, for your volume. What should you do early in the fight? In my opinion, what Maidana has to do is lie to Floyd. He has to hide his real punches. In other words, Maidana should do what Ali did against Liston. He needs to spend the early rounds looking at Floyd, figuring out the angles. Don't think for a second you're going to leap in on Mayweather. Doesn't everyone do this? Don't think you're going to leap in on Mayweather, bully him, and somehow get him over to the side of the ropes and give him the business. That never happens. Isn't that what Victor Ortiz tried to do? How many guys have we seen try to bully Floyd Mayweather? Ricky Hatton, Isn't that what he tried to do? Does that ever work? Miguel Cotto. Isn't that what Cotto tried to do? Right? When's the last time you saw Floyd getting bullied by a guy? Shane Mosley. Isn't that what Shane Mosley tried to do? Folks, notice the trend. Floyd's unbeaten. That strategy does not work. If you're on your front foot all the time and you think you're going to outmuscle Mayweather, get him up on the ropes and have him be defenseless, you're just going to be another victim. So what Maidana has to do, in my opinion, is hide his real agenda for the first few rounds. Floyd's a slow starter. We know Floyd's going to be reading him like a book. Trust me. If anyone is going to be observing angles and what can work, it's going to be Floyd Mayweather. Right? Mayweather's going to be reading Maidana. What Maidana needs to do is to come out and pump a jab. Throw straighter punches, even if they have less force than his real power punches. Hide the angles of the A game he shouldn't unveil until we're 4, 5, or 6 rounds into the fight. On clinches, he should be looking to see which way Mayweather goes. He should be making mental notes. If there's a clinch and Mayweather backs away from the clinch and has a hand down, let's say he exposes himself to a left hand, Maidana needs to make a mental note of that. So then later in the fight, not early, but later in the fight, when he clinches Floyd, he's ready to throw the left hand as Floyd backs away. By the way, I'm not suggesting Floyd is sloppy in backing away from clinches. What I am saying is those are the kind of opportunities, if I'm Marcus Maidana, I should wait for. So the point is this: Maidana does have a straight jab. If I'm Maidana, I would just take the left hook out of my arsenal early. I'd be throwing straight punches, right? I wouldn't even be throwing my power shots. If Mayweather then makes an adjustment to block my straight punches, if Mayweather makes the adjustment to block my jab, then only in the 6th round, middle of the fight, when I see an opportunity where Mayweather might be lackadaisical, that's when I start throwing power shots. And let me say this too. That's when I have to change the cadence of what I'm throwing. In other words, early I'm lying to Floyd. So let's say I'm doing a jab, right hand, right? Jab, right hand. In the middle of the fight, I've got to change that up where, now I'm throwing a jab, left hook, right? Something where a defensive master like Floyd, who's doing pattern recognition, isn't expecting the second part of the combination, right? You need to feed him false information early so you can go for the knockout in the later rounds. Maidana doesn't have the hand speed, right? He doesn't have the excellent jab. He doesn't have the foot speed of Amir Khan. He cannot fight the fight Khan would fight against Mayweather. He can't jump out and decide he's going to try to take the early rounds and then get on his horse later. He can't fight that fight. He's not that good on his back foot. He's a slugger. He's a stalker. So what he has to do is to masquerade as something else early in this fight. He needs to try to somehow find a way to bank body punches while he's masquerading as something else. He needs to hide his real punches. He needs to even pretend he's not a stalker. Right? He's the guy who's pretending to be the happy, nice neighbor before the crime. before you realize he's a sociopath. Not to say he's a sociopath, I'm just being melodramatic here. But the point is, Maidana needs to be honest with himself. He's not going to come and outmuscle Mayweather and beat him up. In fact, I think it's an open question on who has the stronger body. I would argue Mayweather is very strong. Right? Maidana may be a big hitter, but his body is tender. Right? Trust me when I say Mayweather's going to be throwing his own body shots. The key is Maidana should not go for the early knockout. It doesn't work. He doesn't have Shane Mosley's hand speed. It's not gonna happen. So what I think he needs to do is he needs to fool around, lie to Floyd, pick his spots. Then when he sees the opening after Mayweather is tired, that's when he needs to surprise Floyd with a new punch from a new angle, thrown with new ferocity. Right? You can't debut your new stuff early against Mayweather. Right? I believe counterpunchers start slow, but they're reading you. They're reading what you're presenting. What you present in the early rounds has to be a lie. Right? You know, your real stuff should be what you do later. If Marcus Maidana wants to throw some punch from up here like he likes to do, from up here and come down with it, he can't show that to Floyd when Floyd is fully awake and lucid. He needs to wait until Floyd gets lulled into forgetting about this punch. Right? He can help lull it by throwing some tepid right hand here at this angle that Floyd starts blocking, before he then comes with this looping shot, the kind of punch that seemed to work against Adrian Broner. It's easier said than done. I don't believe Floyd's going to be lounging around the ropes like he did against Cotto. I think he's going to be in the middle of the ring. I think he's going to try to make a statement by knocking out Marcus Maidana. I'm expecting Floyd to be just like he was in the Gotti fight. If Floyd opens up early and if Floyd is going for the KO, then at that point, you need to convince Floyd that he can get a little sloppy so you can take advantage of the sloppiness. But what you can't do in the early rounds is bring your A game, show Floyd all the angles of your A game, throw your equivalent of Foreman's right hand. You know, have Floyd figure out if he can take that right hand. You cannot do that in the first 3 rounds of the fight. Right? Let me just say, too, if I'm Maidana, I would forget combinations. I know that sounds ridiculous. Right? Less volume, not more volume. What I would try to do is I would try to take the fluff out of my game, and I would just try to load up on power shots. You know, so literally, it should be the kind of thing where you understand. If you show Floyd Mayweather the same combination twice, if Floyd figures out your punch pattern, he's going to start blocking it. So what you got to do is you got to change the punch pattern. In fact, in my opinion, you need to do away with the pattern altogether. You need to study the angles, figure out when you can throw a Sunday punch, and then get it off. Right? The point is, Floyd's not high volume. You don't fall into Floyd's trap by trying to be high volume, have him blocking your shots while you're tiring yourself out. Right? Maidana should think of this as a 12-round match. He should be honest with himself. He's not going to win by decision. Understand, if you look at the scorecards on Mayweather fights, Mayweather doesn't edge out anybody. He's winning by several rounds. Think the Canelo fight. Right? Several rounds. The one judge who had that fight a draw, we all thought it was preposterous. Right? I'm telling you, I was here online looking at the scorecards of people like Dan Rayfield of ESPN. After 6 rounds, Rayfield had it 6-0 Floyd Mayweather. The second half of the fight was just an exercise in, is Canelo going to get a knockout? right? I believe it's going to be more of that against Maidana. So if I'm Maidana, I'm trying to get Floyd tired so I can then unveil my A game, take it from behind the curtain in the 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds, right? In other words, if I'm Maidana, I'm trying to do what Foreman did against Michael Moore, right? Just survive to the middle of the fight. Then take the cotton off your real punches. Go for broke. Try to catch Mayweather when he's tired. If you've banked enough body shots, maybe you can land something and get a late knockout, right? The wrong strategy is to try to get the knockout early. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Let me just say, the Shane Mosley fight. Let's talk about it. Mosley buzzes Mayweather. Mayweather looks like he's on the verge of getting knocked out. Here's the problem. Mosley buzzes him too early, doesn't he? Right? Mosley showed that straight right hand too early. What if Mosley had hidden that right hand? What if that fight had made it to the 7th, 8th rounds? What if Floyd then got hit with the right hand after Mosley didn't throw it for much of the first part of the fight, lulling Floyd into complacency? If Floyd had been hit with that Mosley right hand in the 8th round, Mosley may have gotten a knockout. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.